Greetings, a year of wine and wound. We've put stuff on the Facebook already with this, describing this, but let's get into a little more detail. I can do it face to face. We can say it a little more clearly. So I have basically a topic that will run through the entire year, not January through January. I don't care about the Gregorian calendar. We're a little different. We're starting in August. It just happened to be convenient. It was coming up. And so we're going from August all the way through July, an entire year. Podcasts, every month we'll have a different theme based on the primary theme. The wine and wound is what we're calling it. Basically, Jesus was Hebrew. The scriptures describe him as the root of Jesse. It describes him as the vine and we are the branches. It describes him as we are the branches that are grafted into him. He's also described as, we did Psalm 1 already. Solomon describes him as a replanted tree by streams of water. Jesus is what we grow out of. It's what we are grafted into, and he was replanted himself. That describes the wound. We've already talked about this. If you've missed this, check it out. Psalm 1 describes a tree replanted actually by a river, regrafted into the river, into ground by the river. Jesus was cut down. Jesus was killed, and he was replanted. And we are grafted into that. So even Jesus, his glory was based on being cut down and being replanted. In the same way, we are cut off. We've been cut off because of our sin, but we can be regrafted into him. And this whole year is going to be about that. It's going to be about the wine that comes from something like that, the leaves that do not fade, and so on and so forth. I have 12 months worth of 12 different topics, and we're going to be covering a bunch of different things. This month, the topic is, it's a set of Hebrew words, Chesed ve'emet. It's God's loving kindness and his truthfulness, his faithfulness. That is what this month is about. We've already talked about it a little bit with our Psalm study. We only had 1 week so far. It's actually 2 days within 1 week because August starts out and you only get 2 days, and it's crazy. But so this coming week, we're going to have basically we're going to go through all the way through the Psalms. We've already done Psalm 1. We're going to go through all 150 of them, 3 Psalms a week, except for last week. That doesn't really count. But 3 Psalms a week through the whole year. We'll go through all 150 Psalms. That's one part of this study. The other part of this study will be 3 podcasts every month. An introductory one like we're doing right now. There'll be a deep dive through Goat and Nail, my other podcast. And then there will be kind of a summary with another Gloria Omnia podcast near the end of the month. And then some stuff at the very end of the month, some kind of surprise stuff and some fun stuff that I'm building. So this month, Chesed ve'emet. We're going to even maybe learn some Hebrew, whether you like it or not. And that's really what this whole series is about, is we have lost some of the Jewishness of the faith. I have been studying the Psalms for now. I studied about 3/4 of the way through the Psalms, and I finally just put an end to it. And I said, no, I got to share this. I found a way I was having trouble coming up with podcast ideas. So I had a bunch of them, and I can make a whole year's worth out of them. So now we're doing a whole year. So this concept of Chesed ve'emet, it's again Hebrew. Chesed is God's loving kindness. It's so different that you can't just call it the love of God. You can't just say that God is love. We had to translate it different. You couldn't just say love. It had to be loving kindness because it means something different. It means something different than we normally think about love. I mean, one way you can think about love, a lot of people just run around and babble this stuff off. Love can be the way a poor young girl gets tempted by somebody in prison. She can be seduced, and they can look at that as love. Oh, she really loves him. Yeah, that's not love. It's not love when you've been seduced by somebody evil. That's not love. I mean, it may feel like love. You may care. You may have your heart pump beating hard and all that crap. But that's not love. It's not based on truth. So Chesed is God's love. And God's love is true, and that's ve'emet. V'emet is God's truthfulness, his faithfulness, that God never lies. When God promises something, it always comes to pass. It may not come to pass the way that somebody thought it was going to, but God's intention never changes. God doesn't say, I'm going to bring you to fulfillment, and then he doesn't. That never happens. God doesn't say, I am going to love you forever, and it doesn't happen. God's love continues. God's truthfulness never stops. It's Chesed V'emet. And it's in the Psalms over and over and over and over again. And it didn't just start in the Psalms either. I don't know how many of you know this, but within the book of the Psalms, there's one book in the Bible, but that book is broken down into 5 different sections, they even calls them books. The interesting thing is it correlates. The 5 books of the Psalms correlate to the 5 books of the Torah. The 5 books of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. I got them all. So they correlate. The first book of the Psalms closely ties to the book of Genesis. The second book of the Psalms closely ties to the book of Exodus, and so on and so forth. And the themes flow through. So I'm not going to go into that in detail right now. I don't have a great handle on that myself yet, but I have a whole year to play with this with you. So we have podcasts, we have a psalm study, there's going to be a writing project there. I'm also going to be doing a study through the Augsburg Confession. It is a Lutheran confession. It's a summary of the faith, written by men, so it's not perfect, but a lot of people believe it's in error, it's without error, and I happen to believe it's mostly without error. I don't know if there is a confession that's completely without error, and I couldn't even tell you where the errors are. I'm going through the Augsburg Confession because I think it's great. And we're going to go through that, and it's going to summarize the faith for us. All of these you can partake of or not partake of. I think they're all going to fit together seamlessly. And that's why I'm doing this. Every month, it's going to fit the theme. We're going to show how it fits the theme. The Psalms fit the theme. The next month will be a different theme in the Psalms, in the confession, in the podcasts, in the writing project, in the blessings, and the prayers, and all the different things that we're going to be doing all relate to that theme of that month that relates to the big theme over the whole year. So I hope you enjoy this. With this Chesed V'emet, with this introduction, I want you to kind of consider, all of us kind of have an idea, we've been told kind of how life works, about the drama of life, the way that our story happens, the way our story fits everybody else's story is the way I keep on hearing it put. But I think there's something more than that. I don't think we have a story. I don't think I have a story and you have a different story, and Jesus had a different story, and your neighbor has a different story, and your sister has a different story, and your mother had a story, and there were stories from 1,000,000 years ago, and blah, blah, blah. There's one story. There's God's story. God authored all of this. God created the world, and he authored it for himself. He created it also for us to be a part of that story. So we're actors within it. We get to act out our place in this story. Our part and our place in this story. That's what this world is. It's one grand story. And when we go through our lives, we think about our story. We just think about the things that we're going through, and this life is tough. It is. And unfortunately, you can go through and watch a lot of TV. Years ago, there used to be this dumb show called Jerry Springer Show. And it was, I think they still have stuff like it, but people would get up on the stage and you'd have one person that had their story and another person that had another. And of course, they usually didn't match. Usually a wife and a husband, or girlfriend and a boyfriend, or a mom and a dad, a son, or a mom and a dad, whatever. And they'd have 2 different stories, and they'd be yelling and screaming at each other. And that's what a lot of people think life is. It's this big drama, is the word we use. Oh, I'm so tired of the drama. Everybody has their drama. Drama has become this bad word. But I think there's a drama. There's not a bunch of dramas. There's not your drama and your neighbor's drama. There's a drama. And that drama is a story of God's loving kindness and God's truthfulness. That is the big story. It's the one that's right in front of you. You can think that when you go to work and you're struggling, that's the story. You can think about the difficulties you're having within your family and think of that as a story. That's the story, is your part in it. You can think of, the dishes got stacked up and it stinks in the kitchen. There's that, for some, I've met some people, their house has not been cleaned in years and it reeks. It literally reeks before you even get in their house. This happens. And they think that's their story. And we'll see something like that and we'll think that's the way this world is. It's just despairing. And people will live thinking that's their story. It's a story of despair. Because they just think of it as their story. Or they think of it as the story of their house, the story of their family. They're not seeing the big story. The big story is God's loving kindness. And the big story is God's truthfulness and his faithfulness. That's what this month is going to be about. And it relates to, like I was saying earlier, Jesus himself is the vine that all of us are connected to. He's the tree. He's the tree of life. He is the tree of life that is talked about in Genesis. That tree of life is talked about again in the book of Revelation. At the beginning and the end is the tree of life, and all through it, that's Jesus. Replanted by streams of living water, with leaves that do not fade. That's Psalm 1. Listen to the Psalm part that I've already done. It's on Facebook. It's on Twitter. And that's our story. Our story is the story of that tree that we're grafted into. Or it could be, there is room for despair. You could have been a part of that tree, but you didn't have faith. And you fell off, and you shriveled up, and you died because you absolutely refused to be a part of that story, that great story, that big story. But even if your life is moving in that direction, that your house does reek, or maybe it doesn't reek. Maybe you got a really nice clean house. Maybe you got a pretty decent family. But things aren't quite right. You live a pretty moral life, but you don't get along great with a member of your family. It's not working out quite right. Things are a little mediocre. Things could be so much better. We could be a lot happier. And we don't know why we're not. Maybe it's because you're not thinking about that tree. You're not thinking about the grand story. So I'm a father. I have 4 kids. And I thought I did a pretty good job as a dad. And I did a good job compared to a lot of dads. I've met a lot of people. My job is to go from house to house and fix cable. And I go in to just about every single house I have to go to. And I talk to people. And it's great. I get to see the story. And I get to see their part in the story and how they're living it. And nearly every house I go into, there's glory. There's those bits of glory. This is the Glory Omnia podcast. I haven't even gotten into that. The Glory Omnia podcast with life, glory everywhere. And I see it everywhere. I see it in every, even sometimes really smelly house. Glory exists everywhere, underneath everything. Sometimes it's the kind of thing where I see such a mess that there could be a glory if you just got up and started cleaning. And you made this house something again that could be great. And that's where we go. So, but the problem is, all of us, we have that nagging drive that hits us all the time. That we're doing everything we can just to keep our heads above water. Because life is hard. It is hard to be the proper steward you are of your part of the story, of your house, of your family. It's hard to do that. It's hard to be consistent, especially if you didn't grow up in a consistent house where discipline was. It's hard to just manufacture that when you never had it as a kid, and all of a sudden you're a father, you're a mother, and you never really were very disciplined when you were growing up, and now you're responsible for that kid. You're responsible for, your partner, your husband, or your wife. You're responsible for your part in that. Keeping the house clean, keeping it loving, but we fail. We're trying to keep our heads above water all the time, but when you get all done with a day, you look and things weren't quite right. You messed up. But it'd be great if life was the way we all think it should be. All the great TV episodes where everything works out great. Everything does work out great. That's the cool part. When things don't go great, we destroy ourselves. We think in despair terms. We think about the life as a drama. It's a big drama. It's just a big mess. And there's not really much of anything we can do about it. But something has been done about it. Oh my gosh, this is getting to be a long episode. I'm going to try and wrap this up pretty quick. Jesus fulfilled the law. That tree that was replanted, he fulfilled the law on our behalf. It's not talked about anywhere near enough in Christianity. It's just not. We talk about Jesus dying for sin, and that's important because you have to take away the guilt. We are guilty before God because we haven't done all that we could. Even if you have the best house and your kids love you, there's things that you could look at after they're out of the house and go, I didn't do that. I could have done a better job with that. They could move out and they could be better or they could be worse, but all of them could be better. You could have trained them up a little better. You could have been a little more caring. You could have been a little more truthful. You could have been a little more proper mixture of caring and truthful. It's just the way that it goes. But Jesus was perfectly caring. He perfectly cared about the law and he perfectly fulfilled it. And he cared enough to jump into our world, to jump in our smells, our smelly houses, all of our smelly houses. He jumped into it. He cared. He spoke. He talked to people. But ultimately, the whole point was he died. He died on a cross, taking your shame, getting rid of it. He conquered it. He went to hell itself and conquered it. He was replanted into real life. He died and was replanted, and now he's growing and he will never fade. And that is the big story. That is the story. And we get to take part in that story. You actually get to be united to Christ. Though you've got a messy house, you have a clean house in heaven because of him. He earned it on your behalf. There's a place for you in heaven as if you did everything perfectly right. Because in him, united to him, grafted into him, you did. The shame is gone. What you should have done has been perfectly done by him. Covenant. It's called covenant. God made promises in covenant to show you his love, to be truthful to you, that he will fulfill those promises. And now we get to continue that life. We get grafted into him. We get to look at our house, our stinky, smelly house, our nasty, horrible smelling house that people can smell before they even walk in. But you can stop now. You can realize that all of that is taken care of. You can grab a broom, you can grab trash bags, you can get a dumpster, and you can clean all that up. Or your fairly nice house that's already pretty clean, you got little problems in your relationships, you can stop now. You can start thinking lovingly the way that Christ does, not out of fear, not out of I have to do this or God won't be pleased with me. God's already pleased with you. But you can start walking in a way that's more fitting with that him loving you. And we start it now. We got more coming this month. We're going to dig much deeper into this Chesed via Met in another podcast coming up in about a week. Please join me with the Psalm studies that we're doing. I can talk a little bit in these introductions and in the summaries. I'm going to talk deeper into the podcast that's coming. But the Psalms tell so much about his feelings. You can read through the Gospels. They're great books, but it talks mostly about what Jesus did, not as much about how Jesus felt. It doesn't talk much at all about what Jesus felt. It talks about what he did and what he said. But if you want to know how Jesus felt, He sings it through the Psalms. So please join me in that. This is it. Podcasts, I don't usually like being this long. This one anyway. The other one's much longer. But Gloria Omni is supposed to be a short podcast, and this is it. We're done. That was noisy. Carpe Gloria. Have a great week.